And for our final speaker for this session is Frédéric Fournier, the co-founder and CEO of Open Forest Protocol. Frédéric is a natural scientist, having worked in the environmental consulting industry for 20 years. He is the director and co-founder of On a Mission, a Swiss-based NGO supporting sustainable reforestation projects around the world. Seeing the need to scale forestation projects by bringing more transparency and trust, he co-founded the Open Forest Protocol. This open source protocol will provide cutting-edge tools for measurement, reporting, and verification of forestation projects, thus enabling carbon finance. The topic of his conversation today is bridging forestation and blockchain. Please help me in welcoming Frédéric Fournier.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you all for having me here. Thanks to Raphael. I had a very interesting discussion with him, and hopefully I'm here also to open up a bit your mind on different ideas and technologies that we try to build at Open Forest Protocol. So before I get in the details of what we do, I'd like to say that I was very actually interested this morning when I heard that the conversation was all about data, transparency, biodiversity, and basically understanding that this data and all this transparency is a coordination effort. It's basically what we're trying to do with the Open Forest Protocol. We are not looking at the forestry industry. That's an important point to make before I start. We are looking at reforestation, afforestation, so restoration as a whole. So just to set up the ground with a few numbers here. So this industry or market, as we can call it, is probably a big market. It's been quoted to be 1 trillion over this decade by the UNEP. Maybe the numbers are wrong, we don't care, it's going to be probably big. Into this market, of course, we are talking about carbon credits. We know that it's going to be huge. Last year it was about 2 billion. We are expecting 500 billion by 2050. Again here, big numbers. We don't know exactly where we will end up, but for sure it's going to be an increasing, interesting market. And within this market, what is actually interesting is that roughly 50% of this market today is linked to avoided deforestation, conservation, afforestation, and reforestation. We can discuss about avoided deforestation a lot. I'd be happy to do that later, but our focus is more on reforestation, conservation, and afforestation. So, where are the restoration opportunities? They are basically all around the world. And they are basically all around the world in the hands of, maybe not the industry players, but a lot of smallholders, communities, indigenous people. And basically what it means that roughly 99% or even more, they can't access capital to do restoration. So the question is, how do we solve this problem, this coordination issue, to actually bring capital to these restoration efforts? And for us, the overarching problem is basically the lack of good, accessible, reliable MRV. And what we mean by that is that what we have today in place is basically lacking transparency in reporting. It's something that is not trusted by people, by buyers. Eventually, big corporate firms have access to reliable data, they have access to transparent tools, they have those capacities, but most people around the world actually don't trust this system today. And also, it's a very expensive system. So most people around the globe don't have the financial capacities and the resources to start something linked to MRV. And of course, maybe the lack of standardization in this specific market is also to be pointed out. So what do we propose is actually, and that's where the blockchain part kicks in, it's a communal approach to verification and to basically reporting the forest data. So on a high level, what we do is proposing a streamlined process. This streamlined process is basically a process where anyone, anywhere who wants to restart, restoration projects with forest can access a platform basically saying, okay, I want to register my project here, this is what I want to do, this is the lifespan of my project, register the project with a shape file or designing the zone, then the second step would be to do a regular monitoring of what's happening in the forest, and that we will do with an app using the regular methodologies that exist today, so we're not reinventing something there. And the third step, this is really the novelty of what we propose here, is instead of having a third-party verification that is centralized, we propose a third-party verification that is decentralized, meaning that we will work with different actors, different companies around the world to check the data and to approve or deny the data. Once the data is approved, then we can use that data for whatever we want. One of the very obvious thing we can do is create carbon credits out of that data today. We can have the same approach for different type of data. We thought about fires. Maybe that doesn't work that well, but a biodiversity approach to monitoring could be follow exactly the same pathway. So we've been working roughly more than a year on developing a set of products to actually accomplish this. So we have basically two dashboards, a Forester app, as we call it. So it's a device that you can use, an app you can use on your phone device, and an Explorer, which is basically an interface for everyone to check, what's happening where. So in terms of the process, you will use if you are a project operator on the ground, you will use a first dashboard to register your project. Basically, the metadata of the project is going to be there. Once you've done that, you can assign field agents that actually go on the field and recognize the point where they have to go on the field in terms of sample plots. They can collect the data from the forest in the sample plots only, because the phone will recognize where they are. And when they're done with that, they can come back from the field, upload that data to the dashboard. The data can be double-checked by the organization or the project. And once ready, it can be sent to the validation. And then there is, basically we will start with roughly 20 validators, so 20 companies that will look at the data, and those validators will also have a dashboard to double check the data. And then if the data is accepted, then it's going to appear on the Explorer. What is very, very unique about what we build is that we use blockchain. So we don't use blockchain as a hype thing. We use blockchain as the utility of blockchain here is that we make it, all the data, we make it transparent and verified and open. And we use it for three main things. The first is the decentralization. So as I explained before, the decentralization aspect is very essential to Open Forest Protocol, because we want everyone to be there to decide on the truth or the non-valid data. The second point is the immutability. That is also very important, because it means once the data is validated, then the data cannot be changed, and it's going to be there forever to everyone to see and access that data. And of course, that brings the third point as kind of a consequence is going to increase transparency and trust. I'll be brief because I know you all want to go eat, but just a few sneak peeks at the products. So the mobile app is basically a very simple mobile app where we will collect data from geolocalization pictures, data about the trees, so height, diameter, things like that. Then there's a dashboard for the project operators where they will register the projects and basically import the shapefiles if they have one, or they could also, at this point, import data about the projects that are not related necessarily to the forest, but social aspects, other SDGs they are involved with if they want to. And there is the dashboard for the validators. So it means that if you are a validator, you have access to all the projects you need to validate, and you can decide how much time you will dedicate and how much basically resources you will dedicate to each of the validation. And the timeline here, to give you an idea, is we will basically have a reporting every 6 months for the 2 years, for the first 2 years, and then every year after. So it means that as a validator, you'll have to double check those data every year for every project for the lifespan of the project. So, where we are now, we're still a startup. We're launching our products in 2 months, but we already have a good set of people working with us, different type of organization that, as partners. We have C4 from the start who has been involved with our development. We've been talking to governments when we went to the COP last year, which is very interesting because they like the transparency aspect of what we do. We have a lot of forest projects interested, 40 up to date, and we have roughly 20 validators signed up for when we start mainnet in 2-3 months. And a few backers, so those are mostly VCs, some from the blockchain side of things and some more from the climate tech side. Where we are today, we have a few hubs, mostly Central and South America and Africa, and obviously we want to expand to other locations to be close to our projects and be in contact with them. So that's it. I hope it was interesting. If you want to know more about what we build, there is a white paper that describes the whole methodology on our website. So I welcome you to go there, have a look, and also for the one in the room, and be happy to talk with you directly. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, so we have plenty of time for some questions, if you have, about the blockchain and how to use it. Okay. Okay.
I've got one, actually, if I can.
Go ahead.
So I'm interested in the economic incentives for the different, I think you had a great slide that kind of showed the whole process and the different players that are involved in this. I'm interested in the economic incentives for the different players in the process, and specifically for the validators, especially considering, well, I guess there's two parts of this question. What are the ways by which the validators do the validation? And then second, I imagine that some of those validation processes have some really real world costs. And so can you talk about how they would be incented to actually do that?
Yes. So the approach to this protocol, and because it's linked to blockchain, we have tokens involved. Tokens mean that you own a share, like in a regular company, you own a share of the protocol, and everyone can access that. So as a validator, basically you will be giving shares for free. Basically, that's how it works. And those shares will actually allow you to do the validation. If you do the validation right, meaning that you vote for the right outcome and not the wrong, so it means the one that is voted by every validators, you'll earn some more tokens. That's a small incentive. So it's an incentive to actually do the right vote. The second incentive is an incentive once we have the carbon on like working on the platform in the future. The incentive is going to be when the carbon is going to be created on chain. Then there is a small percentage of that carbon, 8%, it's been set at 8%, that is going to be redistributed among all the OPN token holders, so the shareholders of the protocol, if you wish. So it's a double incentive kind of approach. And I can go into the details exactly on how the game theory of the mechanism for validation works. It's a bit complicated, but the outcome is very simple, is that you have to vote for the right outcome. So it doesn't mean that you have to look at all the data in detail. What we want to have here is that the validator look at anomalies. So it's just spotting anomalies. So if they spot an anomaly, then they will obviously vote that there's something wrong. And so that's the underlying assumption of the whole protocol. I don't know if that helps, hopefully.
Thank you for the presentation. Extremely interesting stuff, Fred. Another related question that I have going through this is the transparency, the immutability, the verification is all intensely important, but it all depends on quality of input data coming in from the field. And as one of the previous presenters talked about, the need for more detailed inventory data for these sorts of carbon assessments, which means different field protocols and highly trained technicians in the field collecting that data. If this is open sourced on your phone, is there some accountability in the protocol for the quality of the data that's being collected at the ground level?
Yeah, so that's exactly the point here, is to have the validators checking the quality of data. So, and obviously it's a learning curve, because when you provide an open source tool to people, you have to first teach them on how to use the tool, and they have to do a good job at collecting the data. If they don't do a good job at collecting the data, they'll be rejected, basically. And our goal is to basically have them, it's a trial and error approach kind of thing. So we know that some will fail, and so we give them room to improve their monitoring by re-uploading the data actually 3 times. If they fail after the 3rd time, then they're kicked out of the protocol in a sense. So it's a protocol that actually want to give power of the people on the ground, but also making sure that the quality of the data is there and that data can be used for the purposes of what we want to do, carbon or other things, or just reporting. And actually, we have had conversations with projects that don't really look at carbon. They just want a good reporting tool that is transparent.
Hi, Fred.
Hi.
Peter Chappell, Till Hill. Just wondering about additionality.
Yes, so additionality is a key topic, and especially for carbon. So basically, when I said in the first place that everyone can access, this is true for the monitoring part. If you want to access carbon, eventually we will have to basically do whitelist projects. So we'll have to make sure that, like in every, protocol or other standards, there is an additional part that has been, verified. So it's not going to be free access for all in terms of the carbon aspect. And I can, of course, deep dive and explain more on how we will do that in the detail.
Hey, Fred, Andy Hegel. I just have a quick question. What was the decision process for only doing afforestation projects? It seems like this would be useful for somebody that was a forest owner that already had an existing forest.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a very important question. The answer is quite simple, because where we come from, or looking at the landscape, we were not forester. We were looking at what is the maximum impact for the planet, not only for carbon, not only for MRV, we were looking at ecosystem improvement. And for us, ecosystem improvement, the first step towards that was to give a tool and finance, leverage, scale to the people that need it the most. So that's why we actually tackle this in the first place. But you're right, if this worked for restoration, it could work for other verticals. And of course, improved forest management could be one. There are other ideas we have on how to do that. Conservation could be a second one. So there are a lot of other things we could build on top, but we really want to focus on that because it's what we truly believe in the first place.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, I invested in 2005 in 4 hectares of biodiverse reforestation in Panama, and it's FSC certified. I got carbon credits. I never sold them because I wanted to have a carbon sink. But if me as a smallholder, I wouldn't have been able to really live or get encouraged to invest more, because the money you can make, even a decent price, is very modest. Having spoken recently to smallholders in Indonesia and Kenya, they are all looking for faster ways of getting revenue. And how could a combination of carbon and additional revenue streams help with really pushing the needle? Because I don't think at this point in time carbon is enough revenue for all of this to sustain these people.
You're right. It's not going to be enough revenue, but it's going to be additional revenue, which is a big change. So on our side, with the projects and people on the ground we've been talking to, and I'll take Kenya for instance, as you know Kenya. In Kenya, there are people who are living with $50 a month. They're doing farming, very small plots of land. Those people, if they could earn $5 or $10 more a month, that's already a big thing, and hopefully something like this could help them. I'm not saying that it's going to be simple to implement. I'm not saying that it's going to be overnight, but as a community approach, and we've talked to some NGOs already, it's completely doable. So we're not looking at changing everything. We're just looking at making things, accessible and scalable. And one point also is that we've talked to a lot of actually bigger organizations that have multiple projects around the world that actually look at this technology to be also a plus, not only for the carbon and for the finance, but for the transparency itself.
Okay, that's all. Thank you very much, Fred,
Thank you
for your presentation.
Thank you, Jan.